the fact that there are reviewers out there who unreasonably and for no logical reason whatsoever get all excited about adjustments shows that there's something wrong with them.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
And welcome to the program. Dustin Harris hanging out with you. We are sponsored today by Alamode. Alamode, of course, is the software that I have been using for over 20 years. And there's a reason for that. Check them out. Go to alamode.com or call them at 800, Alamode, 800 ALAMODE. We are sponsored by DataMaster. DataMaster can be found at datamasterusa.com, and it will save you 30 to 60 minutes per report. Again, it's datamasterusa.com, 30 to 60 minutes per report, not per day, folks, per report. And of course, Working RE is a sponsor here. Working RE is where I go to get my information about what's going on in the appraisal profession. You should be as well. Go to workingre.com. One more time, it is workingre.com. Well, periodically on this program, we have an expert on. And that expert, of course, is a USPAP instructor. He's out of Florida. He's a friend of mine. His name is Mr. Tim Andersen. Welcome back to the program, Tim.
Hi, Dustin. How you doing? It's good to be with you again. Thank you.
Lovely, though I do have to say this time of year, I very much, I'm jealous of you all the time. I mean, that fancy beard and the lifestyle that you live, but I'll tell you, the weather right now outside, we've got about 3 foot of snow, and I don't think you do.
No, we don't. No. Which means we don't do any skiing. So
okay.
Maybe that's not as advantageous as you think.
Yeah, maybe. Though airplanes can take us many places. So
that's true.
On a day-to-day living, I do envy you a bit. So welcome back to the program. Like I mentioned, on a regular basis, we have a segment that we are calling Dear USPAP Instructor, and this is where individuals such as yourself, listeners, will reach out to me or to Tim and ask a question about appraisals, about USPAP, about ethics, about fill in the blank. And since I am not an expert on those things, I listened to my mom long ago. She said, if you want to be great in this world, surround yourself with great people. And I have done that with Mr. Tim Andersen. He is very generous with his time. And so thanks again for your knowledge, and thanks for being on the program again, Tim.
Oh, sure, Dustin. It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
I appreciate that. So let's dive right in. We've got 2 questions that we want to tackle today. The first one, I'm just going to read word for word. This came in. I actually don't even see a name on this, but that's okay. One of our listeners wrote, I think to you, and you passed it on to me. The question is, recently after speaking at a local service club lunch meeting, a CPA contacted me. She wanted me to appraise a home she was buying as an investment. She wanted to make sure she was not paying too much for it, since she felt the broker put her under an undue amount of pressure to buy this particular house at this particular time. I accepted the assignment, grateful that there was no lender involved. As you can imagine, I was not to inspect the property. It was strictly a drive-by. I asked for a copy of the client purchase and sale agreement, and she declined, refused really, to give it to me. Her reasoning was that she did not want my conclusion to be colored by any bias toward the purchase price. I told her that it was a matter of law that she give me a copy, since under USPAP, I have to have that instrument, and USPAP is the law. Needless to say, I lost the assignment. What, if anything, did I do wrong? Mortgage work is slowing down, and I need this other work to replace it. Please advise. That's a great question. And, Tim, I think that appraisers are not immune to this situation, asking for a purchase sale agreement, even if it is not a personal, private appraisal like this individual is bringing up. But even in lender work, sometimes I reach out, and though they may not refuse, they either don't have it or can't get it in a timely manner, or sometimes they do refuse. Similar to this, they say, I don't want you to be tainted by the purchase sale. So do your job, and we'll look forward to it on the other side. What do you think, Tim?
Well, the appraiser asking for a copy of the purchase and sale agreement is exactly what is supposed to happen. The appraiser has an ethical responsibility to ask for it. However, and there's always a however. There is absolutely no requirement. Always a however. However, there's absolutely no requirement that anybody provide the appraiser with a copy of the purchase and sale agreement, because while USPAP is quote unquote the law, and really it is, but we're just going to go with that for a minute.
Sure.
Well, USPAP is the law. It applies solely, only, strictly, and uniquely to appraisers. So by demanding that the contract grantee provide a copy of the purchase and sale agreement under the assumption that it was the law was an incorrect assumption, because the law does not apply to anybody but appraisers in this case.
Okay.
Therefore, the contract grantee had no responsibility, legal, moral, ethical, whatever, to hand over a copy of the purchase and sale agreement. And it's a shame that your correspondent lost the assignment. We don't like to lose assignments, but there's absolutely nothing that says that anybody has to provide that to you. Now you say, well, Fannie Mae says that I have to get a copy of the purchase and sale agreement. Yeah, Fannie Mae does, but since Fannie Mae was not involved here, Fannie's rules don't apply. Simple as that.
Okay, so what she's doing is maybe mixing up a couple of things. First of all, she did the right thing in asking, but what you're saying is it's not the law that she actually receive it, especially on a private.
Right? Yeah, ethically she has to ask. That's 1-5 standard rule 1-5, if I recall correctly. But nobody has to provide that information if they don't have it, or quite frankly, if they don't want to. And there are those appraisers who say that we should not be required to look at the purchase and sale agreement because it does tend to bias the appraiser toward the purchase contract. Whether it does or not, I don't know.
Right.
But the point is, we, as USPAP is written 2018, 2019, we have to ask, but nobody has to give it to us.
Okay, so let's go back to Fannie for just a second. The interagency guidelines or Fannie Mae requirements. You're saying that we probably, as an appraiser working on assignment, cannot proceed until we have that?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Fannie's rules say, lender, thou shalt provide the appraiser with a copy of the purchase and sale agreement. Now, what happens is sometimes lenders spontaneously forget how to speak English. So they can't read that, therefore they don't provide it to us. Or sometimes our good friends in the brokerage community get a bad case of the stupids and quote unquote, oh, I forgot. Hello. So we don't get a copy of the purchase and sale agreement. We have to ask. Fannie says the lender is supposed to provide. We can call Fannie up and tattle on the lender.
Right.
We can say, Fannie, I asked and they wouldn't give it to me. Those are bad people. Will you please do something? And Fannie Mae will send a nasty email, and then the lender will say, oh, Dustin's a whiner and a crybaby. Don't give Dustin a lot of work.
Right.
And Dustin probably wants to avoid that if Dustin possibly can. So if you can't get a copy of the purchase and sale agreement, you say in the report, I asked the lender for a copy of the purchase and sale agreement, and the lender wouldn't give it to me. Gotcha. I asked Fannie Mae to tell the lender to give me a copy of the purchase and sale agreement, and Fannie Mae did, and the lender refused anyway. Therefore, while I know it exists, it's out there. Nobody will give it to me, therefore I can't analyze it, therefore I did not analyze it.
Okay. So in other words, it's your responsibility to ask and then, of course, disclose what you've done.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. So are you saying that she, I hate to say this, but she maybe lost a good paying assignment and maybe didn't need to?
Lost a good paying assignment over nothing. Yes, yeah. That's exactly what happened.
Okay, you say it more bluntly than I. What about the maybe the secondary question that is brought up in a listener's eyes of the drive-by? Any problem with the drive-by assignment where the appraiser, because of the situation here, was not able to see the inside of the property?
Oh, absolutely not. It would most likely the value opinion would be subject to the extraordinary assumption that the inside of the property, which the appraiser couldn't inspect because of the nature of the assignment, was in neighborhood average condition or some such language like that.
Okay. Let me ask you a question, and this is somewhat related to that. I received a call yesterday from an individual who is looking at purchasing a home, and it is a friend situation. He does not feel comfortable sending an appraiser through the property, and the question that he had was, Dustin, could you do an appraisal based on my description? In other words, you might get the a square footage from the county or maybe from an old MLS. Maybe you do a drive-by, maybe not. Can I just explain to you what I've seen? And for example, he said they have had cats in the property. It smells of cat urine. Probably all the flooring needs to be replaced, on and on and on. Can I do an appraisal based on someone's description, and specifically someone who might be or might have some influence there or some bias there?
Sure.
Okay.
As long as you disclose that. First of all, USPAP has no requirement whatsoever that the appraiser inspect the property. It merely requires the appraiser to disclose if he or she did not inspect the property. Mm-hmm. Fannie's not involved. The lender's not involved. This is a completely private assignment. So yes, you could do that. And you could do that in a restricted report format.
Gotcha. Okay.
Very, very easily. Now, a lot of appraisers are going to take exception to that. You and I will probably get death threats, but it's perfectly acceptable to do it that way.
Another day in paradise, Tim.
Yeah, just another day in paradise. Yeah, it's perfectly acceptable. You can do it in a restricted reporting format, a restricted appraisal reporting format. If you wanted to do that, your client already knows the place is a dump. And you're just going to reiterate it for purposes of making it clear that you know the place is a dump, and you're going to figure out what the property is worth if it wasn't a dump, and then do some kind of mumbo jumbo or voodoo or whatever to figure out what it's going to cost to undump it, and subtract that from the value as if it weren't a dump, and get the value as in its present condition.
Interesting. So as long as you disclose where the information came from, and as long as you make an assumption that that information is correct and that the value is based on that information that you could not personally verify, you're in good hands.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I want to back up just a second because I want to tell you about something that we do in our office and just kind of get your opinion on this. You said something earlier about, sometimes people withhold the purchase sale agreement because they don't want to bias the appraiser, and they want the appraiser to come up with a true value and not base it on a sale. Now, you and I both understand why it is that USPAP requires us to get a purchase sale, because we do need to analyze it, and any current offer on the property, I think is valid information for us to look at. I think it helps us to look at the market a little bit better. But one of the things that we do, and I've done in the past, I don't do it every time, but I do frequently, just for fun, frankly, is sometimes I will get that purchase sale agreement, but I don't look at it until after I'm done, at least, coming up with a ballpark on the value. Do you see any danger in doing that, or do you think it needs to be part of the process that we're looking at that purchase sale agreement throughout the valuation process?
Well, the valuation process follows a model. And the first step in the model is standard rule 1-1, and then 1-2, and 1-3, and 1-4, and 1-5. So the way the model is set up, you technically would not look at that purchase and sale agreement until basically the tail end of the model. Okay. Because standard rule 1-6 says, okay, appraiser, you've done everything you need to do to come up with a value opinion. Now go ahead and come up with one. So 1-5 is going to be part of is basically the tail end of the appraisal process. And therefore, you can let it influence your thinking, or you can not let it influence your thinking. That's your choice. That's part of your scope of work. And if you choose to let it influence your thinking, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because if you think the property is worth $365 and the purchase and sale agreement is $360, they're not that far apart. You go, okay, that just basically shows that my $365 is right.
Oh, gotcha. I love it. We're speaking with Tim Andersen. He, of course, is a USPAP instructor. Very fun guy to chat with. Very knowledgeable. Appreciate Tim being on the program. Want to pause here and remind you that we are sponsored by three great companies, Alamode being one of them. Had an opportunity to teach a class last week, and we talked about software, and we went into detail about the various software out there, and several in the class were utilizing other things. And it was not my goal to convince them one way or the other. But after going through some of the things that Alamode can do, I think they kind of convinced themselves. So Alamode is out there to help you become a more efficient appraiser, folks. If you've not tried it, check them out. Go to alamode.com or pick up the phone and call them at 800-ALAMODE. One of the great things about Alamode is you can call their sales team and let them know what you're currently using and just ask the question, what can you provide me that I don't already have? They're not only knowledgeable in the Alamode software realm, but also in other software, so much as they can show you how Alamode is different. Check them out again. Go to alamode.com or pick up the phone and call a friendly sales agent at 800-ALAMODE. Speaking of friendly and great companies to work with, DataMaster I've been using for many, many years. It's a great, great company that loves appraisers and loves helping you to be more efficient and more effective at what you do, such as allowing you to be able to import data directly from your sources to your report. Whatever software you're using for your type up, DataMaster can help you to get that information in from your public records, from your MLS, including comps, including subject data, all of that, including MC Sheet. Even though a lot of companies are not requiring that anymore, that information is still very valuable as an appraiser to kind of see where the market's going, and DataMaster will help you to analyze and to import that data. Check them out. Go to datamasterusa.com. One more time, it's datamasterusa.com. And finally, we are sponsored today by Working RE magazine. Just over the weekend, got a great article from Working RE and had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the profession that I've chosen to participate in. You should be as well. If you want to be kept up to date, which you do, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this program today. If you're the type of appraiser who likes to know what's going on in the world and specifically in the appraisal profession, check it out. Go to www.workingre.com and wait a couple seconds. Once you go to their homepage, you'll have a little box pop up and ask you if you want to receive free emails on a regular basis. Trust me, folks, you do. You'll want to be kept updated. Go to workingre.com. One more time, it's workingre.com. And welcome back to the program, folks. We're talking today with Mr. Tim Andersen, USPAP expert and MAI out of Florida. Welcome back.
Thank you, Dustin. Again, it's good to be here. I appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure having you on, my friend. We had a question come in, and I'll be honest with you, Tim, I've lost the question. I do remember the gist of it, and I do remember it came from an individual by the name of Adam. And Adam wrote in and had a question about adjustments. Do you remember that question, Tim?
From Adam, even though it's difficult, I think I do.
Okay. All right. Give us the gist of the question that Adam asked, because I think it's such an important question. I think sometimes we just get in this mode of doing things all the same way, but this is a great question from Adam.
Adam was basically saying, why do we use adjustments? They're stupid. Mostly because... I said it, and I think adjustments are stupid. First of all, Dustin, you've bought and sold real estate on your own account.
Yep.
You and your wife, and when you were buying, and you and Mr. and Mrs. Seller never sat down at the kitchen table and said, well, this house has 2,700 square feet. Ours has 2,300 square feet. Therefore, we're willing to pay you another $87.14 a square foot for the size difference. That has never happened in the history of the planet.
Okay, yeah.
Therefore, why is it we appraisers have to do it? Well, back when the appraisal business started, back in the 30s, in the Depression, and the Federal Housing Administration was in charge of things, they decided that in order to protect lenders, so that lenders would not go out of business as they did in the Depression and could continue to make real estate loans, which is one of the things that helped bring us out of the Depression, appraisers needed to account for salient differences. And they accounted for those salient differences by comparing properties with a certain characteristic and properties without a certain characteristic. And if it were possible to pair out that difference, then the dollar amount of that pairing became the adjustment. Okay, there, in and of itself, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But that was for an FHA appraisal, period, end of sentence. And FHA eventually morphed into many things, and Fannie Mae came along and continued it, and so on and so forth. Well, like many things, the original theory was wonderful and the original purpose was wonderful.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense.
Well, the problem is now, instead of accounting for the salient differences, in other words, the outstanding differences, the significant differences, we've got some appraisal reviewers who couldn't find their butts with both hands and a flashlight, thinking that you've got to account for every difference out there. For example, if you've got wool carpeting and somebody else has just got carpeting, well, there's got to be a $3.75 per square foot adjustment, because that's the difference between wool carpeting and regular carpeting. And that is just utter, complete persiflage and falderall.
Yeah, there's no doubt as to why I love having you on the program. Okay, so what is, in your opinion, what's a salient difference?
Okay,
that's what we're.
Well, there are some interesting paradoxes here. Many appraisers say, "Well, I won't make a difference I won't make a size adjustment difference unless there is a minimum of a 100 square foot difference between the subject and the comps."
Mm-hmm.
And you go, "Okay, that's wonderful." Now, let's suppose there's 101 square foot difference between the subject and the comps. Do you adjust for 101 square feet, or do you adjust for 1 square foot? Because you don't adjust for the first 100 square feet of adjustment.
So in other words, you get to 101 and all of a sudden you're adjusting for that whole 101, yet if you're at 99, there's no adjustment at all.
There's no adjustment, yeah, which is completely silly. So basically, Dustin, what we should be doing is, if this were being done right, we would come up with a value, a range. And I don't know anything about your house or anything about where you live, but you say, okay, I want to sell my house, and you find a house that's obviously better, and you find a house that is obviously superior, although competitive, and the value goes from $400,000 to $600,000. And you say, well, my house is worth somewhere in that range. And then you say, but my house is more like the $600,000 house than the $400,000 house. Therefore, my house is worth $560,000. Okay.
All right.
And that's an opinion. It's a judgment call. You have formed your opinion based on what the market told you, not some silly ass artificial adjustment that basically doesn't come from anywhere except the computer or some rule of thumb that you came up with, or the list of adjustments that your first mentor gave you 25 years ago.
I'm looking at the term silly ass and just make
silly, SILLY-ASS, silly ass.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like it's an official appraisal term according to.
Yes, it's somewhere in the 14th edition of the Appraisal of Real Estate, I think. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I read it.
Yeah. Okay.
But we're supposed to reflect market value. That's theoretically what we get paid to do. And when we're saying, oh, look, I'm going to adjust $8,000 for the presence of a swimming pool. And okay, why? Well, I came up with a range of $8,000 to $14,000. Okay, why not 12? Well, because I liked 8 better. Okay, why? And you say, well, because the pool at my subject doesn't have a pool, but this comparable does, but it's not a very big pool. Oh, okay. Now the $8,000 takes on a little bit more meaning. But USPAP doesn't say we have to prove our adjustments. It merely says we have to support our adjustments.
Okay.
If we had to prove them, we would be up that proverbial creek without a paddle, right? Because there is no proof. There is support, but there is no particular proof.
Good friend of both you and I, Mr. George Dell, wrote an article. Just go to georgedell.com and just type in, can you prove an adjustment? And I think he makes a pretty compelling argument that obviously that cannot be done. So, Tim, are you telling me that an appraiser could do an appraisal and not make any adjustments?
Yeah, USPAP doesn't use the word adjustments. The word adjustment or adjustments does not appear in USPAP until AO13.
Wow.
And then it merely mentions them in the sense that if you're going to use adjustments, support them. But there is nothing in Standard 1, the appraisal development standard, that says you must or must not use adjustments. There's nothing in Standard 2 that says because you had to use adjustments in Standard 1, now you got to explain them. No. So appraisers need to remember that while lots and lots of appraisals are done for Fannie Mae, not every appraisal is done for Fannie Mae.
So you're not, when you say Fannie Mae, you're not suggesting that that our listeners stop making adjustments on the 1004 completely and just say, well, I heard it on Dustin's program. Tim told me I didn't have to anymore. So that's my explanation.
Well, that would be the intelligent thing to do, but it ain't going to happen. So I'm not going to take responsibility for it. But the fact that Fannie has gotten all excited about adjustments, and the fact that there are reviewers out there who unreasonably and for no logical reason whatsoever get all excited about adjustments shows that there's something wrong with them. And you mentioned George Dell. Again, George tells a story about a reviewer. You have to understand, George is essentially a PhD in statistics. Mm-hmm. So he knows what he's doing.
Sure.
Well, some snot-nosed reviewer says, George, you got to bracket your time adjustments. So George says, well, okay, I'll just jump forward in time and get the sale, and therefore I can tell you what it sold for, and therefore I can use it to bracket adjustments, which shows how stupid, how unutterably stupid the concept of an adjustment is. We should be looking at a market value range. The fact that we are somehow, and I don't know how this ever came about, somehow required to provide a pinpoint number is equally stupid. Because you go in and say, you and your wife sit down and say, well, okay, we'll pay up to $600,000 for this house. And you get it for $602. All right. Did you go over your budget? No, not really. But you were willing to pay $600. You paid $602. You really would have liked to have gotten it for $580. So your range is $580 to $602. Okay, that's what we should be looking at. We should be looking at value ranges. We should not be looking at absolute pinpoint numbers because, for example, between $300,000 and $400,000, there are a $100,000 number. Therefore, to say, well, your property is worth $350,000 means that we have a 99,999 to 1 chance of being wrong. So it's kind of silly that we're required to give a single point number. Of course, the banks love that because then they're not responsible for the amount they lend the buyer. We are. And that's one of the reasons we are unreasonably saddled with that silly responsibility.
I talked about the workshop that I gave last week, and one of the participants brought up one of the forms, speaking of Alamode, a sponsor here, in the Alamode software, you can go in, type the word bankruptcy, and pull up a form. I don't even know who created the form, but it's very interesting, Tim. It's a form that you have an opportunity to put in 3 comps and, of course, the salient information about the subject. And, of course, there's some certifications there as well. But one thing that is strangely missing from that form is adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
That's because there's absolutely no reason whatsoever to make those kind of adjustments. Now, let's go back to swimming pools.
Yeah.
Okay, where I live, swimming pools are very common. Mm-hmm. Now, we're recording this in February. Yesterday, it was 87 degrees.
Oh.
Okay. Now, would it have been a great day to go swimming? Yeah, it would have been an absolutely fabulous day to go swimming. What little I know about Idaho weather, I'm assuming it wasn't 87 degrees in Idaho yesterday.
You want me to turn the camera around?
Okay. The point is, in Idaho, swimming pools aren't as important as they are here.
Right.
Now, and I would imagine that they don't contribute as much to value as they do here.
Right.
So why is it that somebody wants to know that a pool has a contributory value of $8,754? It doesn't. It's got somewhere between, I don't know, $8,000-$9,000, whatever the market says. And out of that range, the appraiser should be able to choose a contributory value and then justify it by saying, well, my subject doesn't have a pool, the comp has a pool, but it's not a very big pool, therefore I went to the lower end of the range. Okay. But we have that freedom in the sense that we have to pull the range out of the market. We're not given that freedom because then we have to come down and say, okay, this particular house with all of these amenities has a value of $876,000. Well, that's kind of dumb. We should be able to say it's got a value somewhere between 850 and 9. That's what we should be able to say, because that's a true opinion. When we say 876, it sounds like we're stating a fact, which we are not.
Right. And nobody's going to say it's going to sell for 876 and not 877 or 875
or 876.3. Yeah.
Yeah. Good point, Tim. As always, a plethora of knowledge. I appreciate you joining me. Tim, one of the things that happened last week, I'm just going to toot your horn just a titch here. Had an individual on the workshop last week. I'm not going to reveal her name. We'll just call her TA for purposes today. And she spoke very, very kindly about you. She had reached out to you about some of your services, and you had helped her immensely. Talk to our listeners a little bit about the services that you provide to appraisers.
Well, I do windows if it comes right down to it. No, I'm very happy.
Wait a minute. In Idaho in the winter?
Yeah, see, that's the point. I don't have to. Therefore, I will be happy to do your windows because I don't have to.
Fair enough.
I'm more than happy to consult with my fellow appraisers. I don't do it for free, just so everybody knows.
Sure.
But I'm more than happy to consult with my fellow appraisers relative to USPAP, relative to appraisal theory, relative to appraisal practice, relative to penalties that a state board might be trying to assess. And one of the things, appraisers, we're told that, okay, we got to develop value opinions and you got to do it by yourself because it has to be your value opinion and not anybody else's value opinion. Well, okay, I got no trouble with that. But it also tends to develop a go it alone, go it yourself mindset. And, well, there's nothing wrong with that per se. Sometimes in order to go it alone properly, you need help.
Yeah.
And just as you provide assistance, I provide assistance. You provide assistance in the appraisal business. I provide assistance in the appraisal theory and ethics area.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you do just to nail it down of listeners saying, well, how could I, if I'm not before my state board, how could I utilize Tim? One of the things that you do is help people before they get to the state board in the sense of, hey, send me one or two of your typical reports and I'll go through it with a fine-tooth comb and I'll come back and say and make suggestions on how you might improve as an appraiser so you don't ever end up before the state board, right?
Yes. TA and I went through a number of reports, and the question TA asked specifically was, is my scope of work language proper?
Nice.
And we went through and we looked at numerous appraisals, and by and large, yes, the scope of work language was proper. We tweaked it a little bit. We took out a few redundancies, and we made it we made it to the point where it didn't sound like it as if it were boilerplate, but rather we made it show that the scope of work had to do specifically with that particular assignment.
Love it.
And that goes a long way to shutting up state boards, because one of the things they look for is the overuse of boilerplate, frankly.
Yeah. I've been called out on that. We won't go into that story. All right. You can get a hold of Tim at, just email him, tim@theappraisersadvocate.com, tim@theappraisersadvocate.com. And your phone number, Tim? 561-635-5265. I also have another email address, and it's tim@theuspapexpert.com. Love it. Love it. So if you've got a question about USPAP or anything else, it's Tim at the USPAPexpert.com, or you can call him 561-635-5265. And if you have not gotten enough of Tim, go to my website, theappraisercoach.com. Check out our products page and the webinar specifically, where he and I sat down and talked about alternative valuations. And specifically, Tim's part in that was to talk to us about USPAP and how we can and should be USPAP compliant in those types of report. Tim, thank you for your time, my friend. I appreciate you being on today.
Destin, thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Always. And until next time, that was Tim Andersen. He is an MAI, a USPAP instructor. Folks, if you have any question about USPAP specifically, reach out to myself, the coach at theappraisercoach.com, or Tim at the USPAPexpert.com, Tim at the USPAPexpert.com. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
Well, that's okay. Worse things have happened.
Well, that's true.
As soon as you get kidney stones, you'll realize that's true.
I'm just going to take your word for that one.
Good for you.
So I don't think I'll ever want to go through that.
You'll, if you can, you'll want to avoid it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So maybe we'll start with that one, and then we'll go to a break, and then when we come back, let's hit the one on. Now it slipped my mind. What are we doing on the other one? Hold on.